All three of them were waiting inside, sitting in a room that had witnessed so many moments, both painful and peaceful. I knocked on their door, uncertain of what to expect on the other side. Asterisk, as the sound of my knuckles tapping echoed down the hallway, I felt a mix of anticipation and fear. There was a history here, one that could never be erased. This was no ordinary door. Behind it, there were people I once knew, people I once trusted, people whose lives had intertwined with mine in ways I could never forget. Asterisk, the air around me seemed to change as I waited. Time felt like it had slowed down. I could hear their soft voices through the thick wood, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. Were they talking about me? About the past? Or were they simply waiting for me to make the first move? Asterisk, I felt a knot in my stomach, and with each passing second, it grew tighter. The door, which had always felt like a barrier between us, suddenly seemed like an obstacle that was much more than just physical. It symbolized everything that had happened, everything that had led us here to this moment. Asterisk, finally, the door creaked open slowly, revealing a room dimly lit, with only the soft glow of a single lamp. The shadows of their faces were hard to read, yet I could see their eyes, those eyes that had once held so much love, now filled with uncertainty. Part 2. As the door opened wider, I stepped inside, my heart pounding louder than ever. The three of them sat there, frozen in time, as if they had been waiting for this moment just as much as I had. Each of them held a different expression, but all of them had something in common: the weight of years of silence, regrets, and unspoken words. Asterisk, I could feel the tension in the air, thick and almost suffocating. The room was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel every breath, every shift in position, every subtle movement of a hand or eye. Asterisk, one of them, the one I knew the best, looked at me first. It was a look I had seen many times before, a mixture of confusion and sadness. Her eyes seemed to ask, "Where have you been? Why are you here now?" Asterisk, the second one, shifted in their seat, their body language closed off. They seemed distant, as if they had already built walls around their heart that nothing could penetrate. The third sat with an unreadable expression, neither warm nor cold, but somewhere in between, a mask of indifference, or perhaps a defense, against the hurt they had felt. Asterisk, but despite the distance between us, I couldn't help but feel a strange sense of connection. We were still here, in the same room, facing one another after everything. Asterisk, my throat tightened as I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. What could I say? How could I explain the years of absence, the times I had let them down? How could I undo the mistakes that had led us all to this moment? Asterisk, they were waiting for me to start, to say something, to break the silence. I could feel the heaviness of their gaze, each one silently pleading for answers. Part 3. The silence stretched on, becoming a heavy, suffocating thing between us. I could feel it pressing down on my chest, making it harder to breathe. Each passing second felt like a lifetime, the tension building until I could almost hear my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Asterisk, finally, I spoke, my voice barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of everything I had been holding back for so long. "I don't know where to start," I said, the words slipping out in a rush, as if I had been holding them back for years. "I've spent so much time thinking about this moment, about what I would say if I ever had the chance to face you. All again." Asterisk, I paused, trying to steady myself. The last thing I wanted was to show weakness, but the truth was, I felt fragile. My emotions were raw, exposed in a way that left me vulnerable, open to whatever came next. Asterisk, I don't have all the answers, I continued, the words sounding hollow even to me. I can't change the past. I can't erase the mistakes I made, but I am here now, and I want to make things right. I want to understand, and I need you to know. I'm sorry for everything. Asterisk, as I spoke, I saw their expressions change ever so slightly. There was a flicker of something surprised, perhaps, but it was fleeting. The years of hurt were still fresh, still sitting there like an open wound that hadn't healed. And though I could see they were listening, I knew it would take more than just words to undo what had been done. Asterisk, one of them, the one who had been the quietest until now, spoke up. Their voice was soft, but steady. "You think saying sorry will fix things?" Their question hung in the air, cutting through the tension like a sharp knife. Asterisk, it wasn't an accusation. It wasn't even a challenge. It was a question, one that made me pause and reflect. Could a simple apology be enough? Could anything truly fix the damage that had been done? Part 4. The question hung in the air, unanswered for what felt like an eternity. I could feel the weight of it, pressing against my chest. It was a simple question, but one that had layers that I wasn't sure I was ready to peel back. Could an apology really heal what had been broken? Could it erase the scars, the hurt, the betrayal? Asterisk, I opened my mouth to respond, but the words felt inadequate, as though they would never be enough to bridge the gap that had grown between us over the years. How could I explain that I had been lost? That I had struggled with my own demons, battles they knew nothing about, and that I had pushed them away when they needed me most? Asterisk, I don't know, I finally said, my voice cracking slightly. I don't know if saying sorry can fix everything, but I know that it's a start. It's all I can offer right now, and I hope in time you'll see that I'm trying, that I'm here, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. I want to make things right, even if it takes time. Asterisk, there was another long pause. The room seemed to hold its breath as each of them processed my words. I could see the doubt in their eyes, the uncertainty, and I couldn't blame them. I had abandoned them for so long. How could they just accept my apology? How could they simply forget all the pain I had caused? Asterisk, the third one, the one who had said the least, shifted in their seat, their face unreadable. Then, with a quiet but firm voice, they said, time doesn't erase pain. It doesn't undo the damage, but it does give us a chance to heal. And maybe, just maybe, this is the first step. Asterisk, the word struck me deeply. They weren't giving me forgiveness, not yet, but they weren't dismissing me either. It was a small crack in the wall, a glimmer of hope that things could change, but it would take effort, patience, and trust. And above all, time. Asterisk, I nodded slowly, acknowledging their words. I understood. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to walk it. With each step, I hoped I could prove that my apology wasn't just words. It was a promise. Part 5. The silence that followed was different from before. It wasn't as heavy now, but it was filled with something more fragile hope, perhaps. A quiet understanding that, even though the past couldn't be changed, the future was still ours to shape. Asterisk, I looked at each of them, seeing the mixture of emotions in their eyes, caution, sadness, but also something else. A small flicker of possibility, the kind of possibility that makes you believe, even for just a moment, that things can be better, that even the deepest wounds can heal if you're willing to put in the effort. Asterisk, I don't expect things to go back to how they were, I said softly, breaking the silence. I know that trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight, but I am willing to do the work. Every day, for as long as it takes. Asterisk, the one who had questioned my apology earlier, didn't respond right away, but I could see the wheels turning behind their eyes. After a moment, they sighed, a sound that carried more weight than any words could. It's not about going back. It's about moving forward. Together, if we can. Asterisk, I felt a lump form in my throat, but I swallowed it down. They weren't offering forgiveness yet, but they were offering something just as important, a chance. A chance to show that I was serious, a chance to prove that I had changed, a chance to make things right. Asterisk, I won't let you down, I promised, my voice steady despite the emotions swirling inside me. I won't make the same mistakes again. You'll see. Asterisk, there was a long pause before the third person, who had been silent for most of the conversation, spoke up. We can't promise anything, they said, their voice quieter now. But we're willing to try. Asterisk, and in that moment, I realized that wasn't just about me trying to make things right. It was about all of us, together, trying. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to happen overnight. But for the first time in years, I felt like there was a chance for something real, something that mattered. Asterisk. Part 6. Asterisk, the weight of their words settled on me, and I felt a wave of gratitude mixed with uncertainty. It wasn't a promise of immediate resolution, but it was something far more valuable, a mutual willingness to work through the hurt, step by step, a shared understanding that healing takes time, effort, and patience. And above all, it takes trust. Asterisk, for the first time since I had knocked on their door, I felt a sense of relief. The tension that had gripped my chest began to loosen. Just a little, but I knew that this moment, this fragile beginning, was just the first chapter. There was much more to come. Asterisk, I'm not expecting everything to change right now, I said, my voice more confident than it had been when I first walked in. I just wanted to start. I just wanted to show you that I'm here, that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Asterisk, the quiet one, the one who had been hardest to read, looked at me for a long moment, their gaze intense. And then slowly, they nodded, not in full agreement, but in understanding, a small, silent acknowledgement that they were willing to see. What I would do next, asterisk starting, is all we can do, they said quietly, The past will always be there, but we can't keep living in it. We need to find a way to move forward. Together. Asterisk, I could hear the weight in their voice. The realization that this wasn't going to be easy. There were no quick fixes, no simple solutions. But there was hope in their words. Hope that perhaps with time, we could rebuild what had been broken. Asterisk, as I looked around the room, I realized that we weren't the same people we had been before. Time had changed us. Hurt had changed us. But maybe, just maybe, that didn't mean we couldn't change again. Maybe the person standing before me wasn't the same one who had walked away all those years ago, and maybe they too had changed. Asterisk I. No, it won't be easy, I said, my voice steady, but I'm willing to try. I'm willing to show you that I'm not who I was. Asterisk, there was a pause before one of them spoke again. We'll need time to see that, they said softly, but we're willing to give it a try. Asterisk, in that moment, I felt a spark of something. Something I hadn't felt in so long. The possibility of connection. The possibility of healing. Part 7. The room remained quiet for a few moments, but the silence had changed. It wasn't the oppressive, suffocating silence that had greeted me when I first stepped inside. This time, it was a quiet that felt more like the calm before a storm. We were all holding our breath, waiting for something to shift, for something to finally give. Asterisk, and then, slowly, it started to walls between us, which had felt so impenetrable. Just moments before, began to crumble, bit by bit. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't immediate, but there was a subtle change, a softening in the air. A gentle loosening of the knots we had all been carrying. Asterisk, one of them stood up, walking over. To me, their eyes still searching mine, looking for something. For sincerity, for the truth in my words. I didn't look away. I knew that in that moment, I had to be vulnerable, to let them see the depth of my regret. The sincerity of my desire to make things right. Asterisk, they stopped in front of me, just close enough that I could feel the warmth of their presence. Their voice was soft, but there was an edge of hope in it now. I can't promise you that everything will be fine right away, but I can promise you this. We'll be here. We'll listen. We'll take the steps together, even if they're small ones. Asterisk, their words hit me harder than I expected. Not because of the promise itself, but because of the hope behind it. It was the first time anyone in that room had given me something to hold on to. Something that wasn't laced with doubt or resentment. It was a fragile promise, but it was a start. Asterisk, I don't expect everything to be okay overnight, I said, my voice steady. But I'm here. I'll be here, every step of the way. And I'll keep showing you that I'm different, that I've changed. Asterisk, the third person, who had remained quiet for much of the conversation, stood up to Elvors. When they spoke, was less cold than before, though still cautious. Actions speak louder than words, they said. But this time, there was no bitterness in their tone. But we're willing to see your actions. We're willing to give you that chance. Asterisk, I nodded, feeling the weight of their words settle. Deep inside me, it wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was the most important thing I could ask for. A chance to prove that I wasn't who I used to be. Asterisk, as I stood there, surrounded by the three of them, I realized that the moment wasn't just about me. It wasn't just about fixing what had been broken between us. It was about rebuilding, about creating something new from the ashes of the past. It wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, moments of doubt, and times when it felt like we were stuck in the same painful cycle. But as long as we kept trying, as long as we kept moving forward, there was hope.